This is Matthew Schaefer. The New York Islanders selected him first overall at the 2025 NHL Draft despite him only suiting up for 17 junior hockey games this year, the fewest games played from a first overall pick ever in the NHL entry draft. History tells us that a small sample size of excellence in your draft year is a gigantic red flag, and the data tells us that players who suffer a major injury in their draft year rarely meet expectations. And yet, this was the biggest no-brainer pick of the draft for the New York Islanders. So, why is this kid different? Beyond the fact that the last first overall pick from his draft team was Connor McDavid.
And then I ended up talking to him, and I remember I ran out of things to say, and I ended up looking at McDavid and go, "I'm proud of you."
And beyond the fact that he can look like Connor McDavid at times when he's on his horse, there isn't any 17-year-old who's had a better first impression on the Spit and Chicklets podcast.
Are they having you eat more calories? Like, what are you at?
I think they want me on the biz diet where you just eat whatever.
If all Matthew Schaefer was a character guy, I think he's still taken first overall in the I Really Like You draft. He's gone through more adversity in the last 2 years than most NHLers have, and he's somehow come through that with a mentality that's impossible to not root for. But you don't draft guys first overall based on personality alone. You have to be skilled. There's 3 X factors that define Matthew Schaefer's game, and they're the basis for why he went number 1 overall at the 2025 draft. The most interesting of these, and the one you'll probably notice right away, is his speed in the neutral zone. He's a transition ace. By the time Matthew Schaefer has reached his prime, there might not be many players who are better at transitioning the puck through the neutral zone and from the defensive zone. He hits top speeds almost instantly, and at least playing against U20 competition, he had unprecedented aura while he was wheeling. And you'd never believe it, but the stats back it up. In the 15 minutes of 5v5 ice time he played at the World Juniors, he had the highest rate of zone exits of anyone at the tournament. In the same time frame, he had the 3rd highest rate of zone entries among defensemen. It's a tiny sample size, granted, and damn, you'll hear that a lot when talking about Schaefer this summer, but his rate at the World Juniors would have had him 3rd in the NHL in zone exits and zone entries per 60. He moved the puck at the same rate as a Quinn Hughes or a Roman Josi, which is fitting because Roman Josi was considered the king of transition hockey among defensemen before Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar showed up. He did it through positional awareness, and he didn't rely on pure athleticism to work into the zone. That's why he's been able to be near the top of the NHL in zone entries and zone exits despite playing on this brutal Nashville team. When you can carry the puck like the most elite, you can make an individual difference much more consistently regardless of who you're surrounded by, compared to say a sniper. This can be a reference for what kind of early contributions Schaefer will bring to Long Island, the first modern elite transition defenseman since they wore those fisherman jerseys, or really, maybe ever. I don't know if Schaefer has as much patience or poise that a Josi has, but Schaefer's game is built around speed first and foremost. I don't think there's any stopping him from actualizing this in the NHL. No matter what, the transition gene will be in Schaefer's game. That being said, the data I've seen says Schaefer has been better at initiating zone exits and breakouts versus zone entries. Maybe the issue here comes from the occasional missed pass, where I think his playmaking could be a little bit more fine-tuned. These are simple plays I think can become second nature with, more reps. Especially when you look at some of his high-level plays that he hits so often, it feels like the sky is the limit with how he can help create offense through breaking into the zone. Schaefer has all the tools to be a zone entry guy, and I think this is where you trust the film, potential, and tools over the data, which isn't as favorable, especially with a guy so young. Despite being the first overall pick in the 2025 draft, Schaefer is only 10 days away from being in the 2026 draft. You could make, albeit kind of AIDS argument, that he's about a year younger than most people in this draft class. Poise comes pre-installed with some prospects, but it's also a skill you can develop through repeated reps of the same action. Some of these clips are when he's 16 years old. Imagine how he'll look when he's 20 years old. That's 3 years from now. But the transition game wouldn't be possible if Schaefer didn't have arguably his most important trait, an endless motor. Having a high motor doesn't just mean buckling down and hitting piston crossovers up 5-1, 10 seconds left, wheeling behind your own net. It means on the penalty kill, Schaefer's willing to sacrifice a body to block a shot in a dangerous area. Canada's dominating the game and it's early in the penalty kill, but Schaefer puts mind over matter to challenge the rim around the net, and like a dog, is the first to his bone. And how about mind over matter, first to the bench so Canada can get some fresh legs out there. His motor isn't clean, F1 Connor McDavid, it's NASCAR nitro fuel, and that's one of the most exciting parts of his game. Elite prospects pulled a panel of scouts for their 2025 draft guide, and there was one defenseman who ranked in the top 5 for motor, Matthew Schaefer. The only other 2 defensemen who have ranked top 5 in motor in the 4 years that they've done these guides are Denton Mateychuk and Tom Wielander. Both of them are either in the NHL or project to be major contributors in the NHL, and neither of them have the size or skating that Matthew Schaefer does. It's rare you see such a talented defenseman have the heart that Schaefer has. What that means is that 45 seconds into a shift, he'll slow the play down and dial into a one-man breakout, tearing by Latvia's F1. Or when there's a 50-50, he buckles down to read the play, tap it to himself, and explode out of the zone. And hey, that actually looks a little bit like Roman Josi leaving through the middle to offer support to his wingers. It created a pretty good scoring chance for Canada, especially as Schaefer again gets in on the forecheck to keep possession for Canada. Dog. Even if he makes a mistake, he's going to put his body on the line and prevent the goal against. He plays like he has something to prove every night, and that's not what you get from every first overall pick. But a motor running all the time doesn't mean anything if the car doesn't move fast, and damn does this car move. Schaefer has the ability to create an instant fire drill for the opposition from his own end by building speed, and that alone creates a world of opportunity at the NHL level. You've seen countless examples already of what Schaefer's brought at even strength, but where I think this will be especially useful is on the power play. We've seen how smart penalty kills have become and how difficult it is to create a zone entry nowadays. Unless you have a super skilled, fast defenseman who can quarterback your power play, a defenseman like Zach Werenski is able to receive a puck with speed and create an immediate zone entry against one of the best penalty kills in hockey. Adjusting his angle and gliding into the zone, he has the advantage on the drop pass because he has his speed and ability to make a play. And not to start glazing anyone here, but having a fast two-way defenseman running your power play does add a layer of protection that you don't really have with other power play 1 options. It sets the tone for the opposing PK that nothing's really going to come easy. General rule of thumb is that when using the drop pass, which is a staple on the power play nowadays, the further up the ice you can get before dropping it, the easier it will be to enter the zone as there's a larger gap for the puck carrier to work with. Being able to blast past the F1 forces a PK to entertain a different look or just give up the zone entry entirely. Schaefer has potential to be a number 1 quarterback defenseman, even if I haven't talked about it much, but I don't think his shot or his playmaking are necessarily elite just yet. But Schaefer's speed works just as well defensively, as being able to match the opposition's speed through the neutral zone is one of the most effective ways to shut down a rush chance, especially when he can time a good poke check and clear the puck from the zone on the PK. So we know he has a killer transition game, he has a better motor than Lightning McQueen, sorry Roger, and he has the ability to get up to speed both offensively and defensively. But what can we expect out of him now, or even forward into his career? Jake Sanderson has been ultra effective for Ottawa despite being so young. He's established himself as a number 1 defenseman. A major foundation for that is reliability with and without the puck, with a strong note of aggression defensively. If Schaefer's motor is what proves to be the most important trait of his, I see a career like Jake Sanderson's where we don't know the full extent of his ceiling, but as a number 1 two-way defenseman who plays power play 1, penalty kill 1, and first pair, Schaefer does have the potential to be a cup-winning defenseman. In this scenario, there's probably no Norris trophies, and the playmaking and shooting probably never develops to that elite level, but that is kind of a realistic outcome. Strong skating, strong effort, and a focus on two-way hockey can still make you one of the best defensemen in hockey, like Jake Sanderson is, and we haven't really seen the limit on what Sanderson can become yet. Keandre Miller, which is probably the worst scenario for Schaefer. An over-reliance on his skating and transition game while slowly losing that dog in him over time. Not to say Miller doesn't have any dog in him, but occasional defensive lapses and an offensive game that's never been good enough to put him on the first pair has meant that, yes, he's getting 50 sheets from Carolina, but he's not someone you'd be happy with spending a first overall pick on. Unreal at zone exits, and apart from the occasional highlight, he isn't really elite at entering the zone of possession. Something that the data shows could maybe happen to Schaefer, especially as the data was a little bit lackluster at the World Juniors when he faced his toughest competition. I see this as the baseline for Schaefer, where I think the tools are similar, but if Schaefer never really improves. I also think Schaefer is a lot more naturally creative and has better defensive instinct, so I don't know if it's actually the most realistic scenario, but God forbid Schaefer doesn't live up to the hype. Maybe this is what the career looks like.
I was actually black till I was 15.
The best scenario for Matthew Schaefer is that he literally becomes Cale Makar. To get here, Schaefer will have to work on timing his speed and weaponizing it at the highest level. As it stands, his speed is more aggression than finesse, and I don't think anyone's really upset about an aggressive defenseman going Formula 1 down the wing on a regular, but at the highest level, we've seen how skating is more of a finesse game than anything else. Cale Makar, or Quinn Hughes, is probably the number one example of this in hockey. They're both at the point where they can walk the blue line better than maybe any defenseman in the history of the sport. It's mastery what they've been able to do this decade. Matthew Schaefer hasn't shown the ability to do this yet. There's a clear divide when looking at how skilled and impactful he is with a head of steam versus when he receives a puck at a standstill at the blue line, at 5v5. Because when he's on the power play, he works off puck a lot and he gets involved in the play. The extra space, I think, gives him a bit of a leash and he's shown what he's capable of. Is there a reason this can't happen at 5v5? No. And largely, That's why he went first overall. His potential really is that high. I can see Matthew Schaefer getting maybe 80 points in the NHL one day, but I don't think that will be his main jam. Morgan Riley had 72 points a few seasons ago, and I think Matthew Schaefer is tiers above Riley in terms of potential. Schaefer's player type can be defined as a speedy, all situations, transitional defenseman, the kind of guy you want to build your franchise around, a true number one defenseman. The Islanders franchise has turned around basically overnight since the trade deadline. They have 5 prospects that can legitimately make a difference for the first time since probably before Schaefer was born. I love what's going on for the Islanders, but I love this kid more than anyone else in the draft. I'm glad he went number 1 overall despite missing so many games. And to answer the question, Matthew Schaefer is really, really good.